Our next speaker, our next storyteller, is another commuter who also liked hanging out in a different place, though. This was the Deanery. There was apparently also a snack bar in the Deanery, apparently. And this, according to Myrna Edelman Watanabe from the class of 1970.
My journey began when I realized that my C average was not going to get me into medical school. But, you know, hey, I was at Barnard. That C was equivalent to an A from a lot of other schools. So I knew I would go to graduate school, and I knew I would get a PhD. But the question was, what was I going to get this PhD in? I was a bio major, and I needed another course, and my friend said to me, why don't you take animal behavior? It's taught by David Ehrenfeld. He's a young professor. You'll like it. I was an apathetic student. I mean, obviously, the C tells you that. And, you know, I didn't care what I took. I just needed the credit. So I said, yeah, sure. I signed up for the course, and I started attending class. And David was young. He was barely older than we were. Yet he had an MD and a PhD. He earned the PhD at University of Florida studying sea turtles in the field. So his lectures were peppered with photographs of him in the field with sea turtles. And you have to picture, David was a slight man. And there he was with these couple of 100-pound sea turtles. So it was sort of interesting to see this dichotomy there. And it was always on these gorgeous tropical beaches, of course. Well, the course was really interesting, and the textbook, which was brand new, went through all of the history of animal behavior, the greats and the near greats, and I learned everybody's name and what they did, and I was really fascinated. Now, part of the class was a hands-on lab. So my group decided that we would look at feeding behavior in the Australian zebra finch, which has a different name now, but it's a little tweety bird. And David very patiently showed us how to write data sheets, how to take data, how to use a stopwatch for recording data. And then he told us that the most important thing you needed to know was to observe animal behavior. You had to be very quiet and very still for long times. That was something that was completely alien to me. But you know, okay, fine. If that's what you're required to do, I'll do it. And I did it, and I realized that this was fascinating, that watching those little birds, who were very picky eaters, like me, opened a door on something I couldn't possibly see otherwise. It opened a door to understanding how those animals behaved and opened questions that you would ask on why they did this and how they did this. And it just piqued my curiosity, as no other course at Barnard had done to that point. And I thought, gee, I could be an animal behaviorist. I'd like to do that. So that was it. I decided, all right, I'm going to be an animal behaviorist. Of course, I was terrified of all animals. I was even afraid of kittens. Nevertheless, that's what I went on to do. I studied fish in tanks, and that was fine. But I wanted to be a field biologist like David. And I got an opportunity to do that. One day, I was in a field trip on the Georgia Sea Islands, and there I held my first alligator. Actually, I sexed my first alligator. And you do it like this, and it's called the Brasitis method. And I just said, it gets funnier, really. And I just said, wow, I wonder what their parental behavior is like. I would like to do that. And I was rewarded by sitting quietly in front of a nest all summer long, just the way David taught me. I watched a mother alligator open her nest, carry the babies to water. I was the first person to get that data and take photographs and stopwatch and timing. Very first person. And I felt that thrill that David must have felt when he was out in the field with the sea turtles and watching sea turtle babies hatch. So that was a really exciting thing for me. And my career had taken me to the swamps of Louisiana, the swamps of Georgia, South Carolina, the rivers in China, and it even got me a husband. Now you can laugh, Mr. Brasitis. I knew that was going to do it. Okay. So, now I'll forget what I'm supposed to say. But unfortunately, my career as a field biologist was cut short when an 800-pound female Orinoco crocodile decided that I was a chicken and chased me and almost grabbed me foot first. So I had a decision to make. Did I want to continue field work, or did I want to do something else? And I chose something else, one of which was being a mother, and the other was being a science writer. But I always had animal behavior close to me. It was something that was very, very important to me. Now, throughout all of my career, I've taught. Mostly I've taught at community colleges, but I've also taught at four-year colleges. And at four-year colleges, I've also taught animal behavior. And teaching animal behavior meant that I was insistent my students had hands-on work. And I did things like yucky stuff, like I had them study American cockroaches, which are, this big and red, in the hopes that maybe someone somewhere would feel the same thing I felt when I watched those little birds turn down their food. Well, so I'm teaching, and I'm, thrilled with crocodilians, and I'm absolutely thrilled when I learn that dinosaurs, which are part of the ruling reptiles along with alligators, had feathers, and that birds really are dinosaurs. It's true. All right. So, I now teach a course on human biology. So I have a choice. Am I going to just talk about the cardiovascular system, or am I going to talk about dinosaurs? I talk about dinosaurs because nobody else is going to do that. My students love it. So 2 weeks ago, I was giving a final, and I slapped on the screen a photograph that came out of a paper that had just come out a day or so before. And this was a paper where the researchers had manipulated the genes in chicken embryos so that they would express genes that they carry to build a dinosaur snout. So this picture had a chicken embryo with a dinosaur snout, a chicken embryo with a normal beak, and an alligator embryo. I put it on the board. I said to my students, extra credit. Tell me what you're looking at. It told what it was, but I wanted them to explain what they were looking at. And at the end of the class, one young man came up to me and said, this is what I'm looking at, because he understood that he was looking at evolution. And, all right. Yeah. And he said, Doc, give me a hug. Now, I was really surprised, but I gave him a big hug, and he said, listen, I'm transferring to a four-year college in the fall, and I came into this class thinking I couldn't understand science, but I can, and I love biology, so hey, who knows? And I thought, had I not been in that class with David, I would not have been in that classroom, and that young man, Umberto, would never have had me and would never have fallen in love with biology. And I looked at him and I thought, this is not just my legacy, this is David's legacy. Thank you, David.